All right, let's get right into it. We're going to break down some new tech that could totally flip the script on how we build the next internet. It's a shift away from staring at lines of complex code to something way more intuitive, something they're calling a vibe.
So, let's be real for a second. If you follow decentralized tech, you know the promise, right? This big dream of a more user-controlled, sovereign internet. But why does it feel like we're just stuck in the mud? Why is it still so ridiculously hard to actually build anything?
Well, the reality is that the dream has been kind of drowning in complexity. You've got cryptographic identities, decentralized storage, a million different frameworks. It creates this huge wall, especially for creators who have amazing ideas but aren't, hardcore deep in the weeds developers. But what if you could just knock that wall down? This is where a company called LINKSPREED and their new studio GLACIER are stepping into the picture. They're proposing a pretty radical new way to build, and they call it vibe coding.
Okay, so what on earth is vibe coding? It's a complete 180 from how things are normally done. Instead of a creator starting with a specific programming language and worrying about syntax, they start with their core idea, the intent, the feel, the vibe of what they want to create. And then this system translates that vibe into actual functional code. So how does this actually play out? It's basically a three-step dance. First, the creator just describes their app's concept, its vibe. Then, a powerful AI model takes that description and actually interprets the intent behind it. And finally, bam, the GLACIER Studio generates all the necessary scaffolding, the code, the logic, the whole shebang, to bring it to life.
This quote from LINKSPREED's CEO, Mark Herdina, just completely nails the shift here. He says, "We're moving from a time when developers had to be translators for machines to a time when machines become facilitators for our own creativity." I mean, think about that. It's a total reversal. Instead of us struggling to speak the machine's language, the machine is finally learning to understand ours.
Okay, but an idea of this big needs a rock-solid foundation to stand on, right? You can't just build this on thin air. And in this new Web4 era, which is what LINKSPREED is calling it, that foundation is a completely new way of thinking about digital identity.
And this, right here, gets to the absolute heart of the issue. In Web 2, your identity is basically owned by Google or Facebook. In Web 3, it's often just your crypto wallet address, which is pretty one-dimensional. But this proposed Web 4 model uses something called a UIID, or Universal Identity. The crucial difference? It's sovereign. You own it, you control it, and it can represent all the different sides of who you are online.
Now, when you build apps on top of this UID framework, you unlock some massive wins for users. First, you actually own your own data. For real this time. But it also means your identity is portable. Imagine trying a new app and it instantly and intelligently personalizes itself to you. On top of all that, security is baked in from the ground up using serious real-world standards.
Okay, so we've got the big concept of vibe coding and the foundation of UIID. So let's get practical for a minute. What does GLACIER actually do? What's the heavy lifting it automates for a creator?
Well, for starters, it handles the entire front end, the whole user interface. So instead of wrestling with code trying to make things look good, GLACIER just generates it for you. And we're talking responsive, accessible, and automatically compatible with the design language of this new Web 4 ecosystem.
Second, it automates the backend. That's the engine of the application. And this is a huge deal. It builds out all the logic for things like peer-to-peer communication, even AI-powered content moderation, all without the creator needing to be some kind of server-side expert.
And third, it tackles one of the absolute hardest parts of building decentralized apps, the data. The AI engine actually analyzes the app's vibe to construct smart, efficient database schemas. This makes sure the app is fast and the data is always reliable.
So, when you put all these pieces together, the vibe, the AI, that identity foundation, and all the automation, what do you get? Well, you get what LINKSPREED is calling the dawn of the vibe coder era.
Now, this whole thing didn't just appear overnight. It started out as an internal project, and it builds on some recent updates to their identity system. But the really exciting part? The next major step is happening literally next week with the public release of the GLACIER Studio.
The message they're sending here is incredibly bold. I mean, for anyone who's ever had a great idea for a social network or a marketplace or a new tool but got stopped by how technically difficult it all is, well, those barriers might just be dissolving.
And that really just leaves us with one heck of a final thought. If the only limit was your own imagination, your ability to describe a vibe, and not your ability to write code, what would you create? What new possibilities does that even unlock?